Welcome to Kathy'sRight.com, your pit stop for the conservative mind, heart, and soul. Welcome back, Tim Enlow. He's a highly experienced personal protection officer, security manager, also a certified firearms instructor. Tim's been to the border and back. He's also a former police officer. Here with more information about what's going on in Texas, going on at the border. Tim Enlow. So, tell me what's been going on.
Yeah. So the border's not getting better, obviously. If you've been looking at some of the posts and stuff like that, that's still a deteriorating situation down there, unfortunately. City of Austin, obviously not getting better crime-wise, everything else, homelessness, everything. It's kind of a big mess right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Texas legislature this session got absolutely nothing done in regards to the border, like nothing.
Zilch. I heard that the Democrats walked out, basically, that they didn't stay for the votes because of the voter ID bill.
Right. Yeah, they were upset about that, so they walked out, so nothing could be done on that. Yeah, it's been a really disappointing session for the most part, as far as even simple stuff like we had that big storm in February that exposed so much. I mean, millions of people were without power for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
We had 12 people killed. That was never even raised in this legislative session.
Wow.
So it's power issues, the power plants, anything like that, nothing done.
Wow. Well, I think that was their purpose, is to not allow us to get anything done.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely obstructionist politics right now, for sure.
What's going on with that DA in Austin? I think Travis County DA. I'm not sure if my information is correct, but a very reliable source said that this person was involved with Soros in some form or fashion.
Oh, well, Soros funded a significant portion of his campaign.
Right.
Yes, a significant portion of his campaign. Millions of dollars were poured in to make sure he got elected. Garza got elected. And, he ran on a anti-police platform. He promised, in his campaign, that his top priority was going to be not basically going after criminals, but instead going after police officers, especially Austin police officers.
That's rather dumb, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing the effects of it right now. If you look at some of the posts from the police department, like from the police association and things like that, they're seizing a crazy number of weapons right now on traffic stops. They're seeing a lot more shootings, a lot more violent crime. They're extremely shorthanded on patrol, to the point where they're having to shut down a lot of specialized units. They just shut down the motorcycle unit. They shut that down completely. There won't be any more motorcycle officers out on the streets. They're all go to patrol because they got so many vacancies now on patrol, that they're having to really cannibalize most of the units that specialize in certain areas of crime fighting. They're having to cannibalize those, send them to the streets just so that they have enough patrol officers to handle 911 calls.
All of this happened since Minneapolis.
Yes.
Since George Floyd. What happens in Minneapolis to one black dude, and I'm saying it's tragic, but still, to one person, all of a sudden, all the police officers all over the country are demonized?
Well, and I know what you're saying, but honestly, I think this has been coming now. Defunding of police was that was a subject already in LA and a lot of the bigger cities like Seattle. That was already on the talking blocks, and they were already taking steps toward that as much as 4 or 5 years ago.
Why do you think they want to Why do you think they want to defund the police? To what end?
Well, I mean, their position is that the police are oppressors, right? And that they are primarily there to basically keep the minorities down, and things like that. That's the narrative that's being pushed, and it's been being pushed. Like I said, it started really being a talking points in the liberal circles under Obama,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of negative statements publicly about the police and how he felt about the police. And a lot of times he would make these statements before he even had all the facts. Like if an incident occurred, like with whether it's Michael Brown, or if you remember Beergate, where the Columbia professor was stopped by a police officer who asked him for ID in front of his house, and
Mm-hmm.
Obama came immediately out before knowing all the facts and said that the police acted stupidly in that case. And then he had to backtrack. Once he found out all the facts, he had to backtrack, and then he kind of had a little beer get together with the police officer and the professor so they could hash that out. But it was a lot of that, Michael Brown, Ferguson, the
Mm-hmm.
after effects of that. So it was building and building and building. And George Floyd, I think, was just the final excuse that they needed to say, okay, now
Now we're going to do this.
now we actually do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the plans for that have been in place for some time to defund the police.
But I don't understand the logic, because if you're saying that the police are a problem, wouldn't you want to add income, add money to make it better?
Well,
That's how the Democrats do everything else. They throw money at it.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. When George Floyd first happened, I did a podcast with a lady named Savannah Hernandez, and we talked about that. And that's one of the points that I made back then already, is the fact that when you defund the police, you're actually doing the exact opposite. You're going to have more incidences because now the police have even less money for training. They're even more shorthanded, so they're more stressed out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really going to have, and crime goes up, which means now the police are under much more pressure. They're running from 911 call to 911 call, and that's not good. That usually leads to a higher number of incidences, and I agree with you. I think training is, in so many of these cases, right, controversial cases. When I look at the body cam footage, and I'm a former police officer, when I look at these body cam footage, so much of it always comes back to training. It always comes back to training, and they don't want to invest in training. It's like they want these officers to hit the streets as quickly as possible with the least amount of funding as possible. And and then when things go wrong, they're like, what happened? Why are they so messed up? Or why did they make this mistake? Or why, and I don't want to say training is the only issue, but it's definitely the elephant in the room. It's a huge issue in police work.
And it's completely against everything that the Democrats have ever treated any problem. They always throw money at it. Oh, you got a problem in Guatemala? Let's send them some money, and maybe that'll solve that problem. We got a problem here. Let's send Iran a whole pallet of money. They usually throw money at a problem. In this situation, they seem to want to withdraw almost punitively, withdraw money from the police, which makes them less effective, I would think.
Sure. And it's there's been a number of times when they've taken some of these outspoken liberals, the police departments have invited them to come visit their police department, and they put them like through a simulator, like where they have to make life and death decisions in that simulator. And invariably people always come out of those simulators, and when they give a statement to the press, it's almost verbatim the same every time. Like, wow, I was really surprised how fast everything developed. I didn't have any time. I was really surprised that I made some terrible decisions in there, and used force incorrectly. And so they're aware. I mean, they can't say they're not aware, because police departments have offered this to people for a long time now. To come in and see, whether it's going on ride-alongs, or whether it's going in a simulator, or having citizens police academies, or all these different things that the police departments have done to reach out to the community and say, look, before you start making decisions about money and about policies, come look at the job first, learn a little about what we do, and then, you can make informed decisions. But what's being done right now is just a complete opposite of that. It's all emotional decision making based on emotions, and not based on any kind of common sense.
I think, and larger picture, and especially when you're talking about global leaders and things, I think the larger picture is to somehow weaken our defense here in our country by
Yeah,
weakening the police. You're
sure.
weakening our first line of defense against harm. And I
Well,
think that that is why people like Soros are backing these DAs that are releasing people back onto the streets who are dangerous. And it's almost as though, I mean, this is my theory. It's almost as though, at the same time they want to have more gun laws and things. It's almost like they want it to be like the wild, wild west or like Mad Max or something crazy like that. It's almost
sure.
as though they want that. And that's what's so scary to me.
Yeah, I think they benefit from chaos. I agree with that 100%, right?
Right.
And you can look at like you gave a lot of good examples, and it's really true, right? Even if you look at January 6th at the Capitol, right? They immediately seized on that and said, this is why we need more laws, and this is why we need the National Guard marching DC, and this is why we need a wall around the Capitol, and all these different things that they always use chaos to their benefit, always, right?
Right.
That is a big difference. If you look at the Republicans, you look at Democrats. Democrats never let chaos go to waste. They always find a way to turn that to their advantage politically.
Hmm.
And Republicans always approach chaos more from a, hey, how do we fix this, right? Like, how do we
Correct.
more police officers to get this under control? Or we need, like you said, we need stricter sentencing, or we need, so they look at it from that standpoint. And the liberals tend to look at it from the opposite standpoint. No, we need less and less and less, because the more chaos there is, the more we benefit.
Yeah. And some people, I mean, on television anyway, they don't even talk about the existence of Antifa.
Right.
I find that odd. I mean, they're
Yeah.
like out there in your face, right behind the cameras, and it's like, oh, they're
Right.
just an idea. I mean, I've
Right.
even gotten to a point where I call those skinny jeans Antifa jeans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I noticed too, people wanted to disagree, when Trump was in office,
Mhm.
and a lot of conservative news outlets were making the point that Antifa is like an extension. It's like almost like the armed wing of the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's conspiracy. That's conspiracy. But how much have you heard from Antifa lately? How much has Antifa really been doing lately, right?
Hmm.
So you see, they're much more quiet right now when the Democrats are in power. It's much more. They're the battles that they pick are much more strategic, right?
Yes.
Trump was in, they were everywhere, right?
Hmm.
It didn't matter. Like, they were in cities all across. You couldn't turn on the news without seeing some kind of Antifa protest going on. Uh,
Exactly.
Now that's almost completely died out, except, in very few places like Portland or so. But other than that, it's like you hardly ever see or hear of them having a protest. And, it's like, so did all those causes suddenly just fade away, that they were
Oh.
fighting for?
I guess I don't know. I think that they came out. I think that many of them were paid. I think there was a lot of unanswered things. I don't think they're investigating the right things. I mean, nobody, for instance, across this country, when they were having their riots, and Antifa was heavily involved, we could see them.
Mhm.
Um, in the middle of the night, pallets of bricks would be delivered, and
Right,
nobody got a picture of them. Everybody's
right,
got a camera now in their
yeah,
hand. How
right,
come nobody got a picture of who delivered all of those bricks? You
right.
don't just see bricks lying around downtown anywhere.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. And it's like the other thing is, and we see the same thing in other parts, right? Like, if you look at Palestine, right?
Mhm.
Um, there was You had to search hard to find videos, and they're out there though,
Mhm.
of them storing rocks and bricks and things like that in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right,
Mhm.
in Jerusalem. They had piles of those bricks that they were using to attack Israeli police officers with, right?
Right.
Before This was before the rockets got launched from Hamas, right? This was
I
just
saw
during
that.
civil clashes, right? And so this is a playbook now that insurgents, and that's really Antifa and other, that's what they are. They're insurgents.
Mhm.
It's a playbook now that they all use the same playbook, right? And they know how to prepare, they know how to set up these ambushes and how to pre-stage all the equipment that they need. And unfortunately, law enforcement usually is the one playing catch up, to that.
And they've made it almost acceptable. I mean, I nothing hurt my heart more than watching police officers being disrespected on television and yelled at, and people were throwing things at the people who
Right,
would be there to protect them if they needed
right,
them. And
right.
to me, that was, I feel like civilization is lost when that's happening.
I agree, and what we're seeing right now is we're seeing some of the lowest numbers in police work as far as staffing in these departments, because officers are retiring earlier. They're leaving the force even before retirement in much larger numbers than ever before, and there's not a whole lot of applicants now applying to fill those slots.
Yeah.
Because we're saying, why do I want to subject myself to that? For what?
I know my grandson, since he was itty bitty, he wanted to be a police officer. And I mean, he would pretend. I even have a video of him in his first grade class reading about how he wants to grow up and be a police officer. And I don't have the heart to tell him, you know what? I'm scared for you if you want to become a police officer. I mean, you won't be appreciated. People will
Yeah,
throw bricks at you. You won't get paid what you deserve. I have a friend who is a police officer. uh, I think he mostly does, patrol.
mm,
And uh, he had to buy his own bulletproof vest. I'm thinking, why don't they provide that? If
yeah,
you're going into a situation where you may be shot, you would think that'd be a part of what they issue you.
right. And to some extent, some of that has always been part of the job, depending on the neighborhoods that you work. Hostility toward the police and things like that. Maybe not to the extent that we're seeing it today, but there's always been some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we haven't seen in the past now is these activist district attorneys who are now targeting police officers for criminal prosecution for the smallest, mistakes that they may make. And so now not only do police officers have to worry, like you were mentioning, about being disrespected or having things thrown at them and yelled at, and because those are things, like I said, that, again, depending on what area of town you would work in most cities, some police officers were used to that, because they just know that there's always a part of society that's not going to appreciate what they do. But now they have to worry about going to prison. And that's, that I think is the catalyst right now that's making a lot of them reconsider whether or not they should remain police officers.
And then we really will have chaos if we don't have
Absolutely.
enough police officers. I mean, we're going to have to learn how to protect ourselves, more so now than ever. I mean, I've
Right.
always been a believer that people should be armed and know how to take care of themselves, and also trained in
Right.
order to use, because guns are lethal. So you really want to know gun safety before you even learn how to shoot. And so there's a lot of things that we need to, I think, on the conservative side, look into, as
Right.
far as, yeah, I think we should accelerate gun knowledge and use, because I think the times to come aren't looking very good.
No, I agree with that. Here in Austin, for example, there was a police officer recently who posted the response times that he's seeing
Mhm,
right now, and he's still with the police right now here in Austin.
mhm.
And some of their response times now are up in the multiple of hours
Wow.
before. Yeah, and in some cases, he said he would see a call that was holding on his computer, and when he came to work the next day, that call was still holding.
Oh my gosh.
Bad it's gotten now, right? To where
Right.
these calls are being held all the way, 24 hours. almost. And we just had a situation here in Austin where there was a shooting, and I want to say, I mean, the response time was like 12 minutes or somewhere around there to a
Wow.
shoot. Now, to give you an idea, when I worked East Austin, our average response time over there was somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes,
Mhm.
for us to get on scene. And now we're talking about 12, 14, 15 minutes. Now, when there's a violent crime in progress, when you're being attacked,
Mhm.
imagine for a moment that if it's taken a police 14 to 15 minutes, you better know how to defend yourself,
Mhm.
because the days of you counting, I don't know if you saw, I posted the incident and the picture where a man was trapped in a burning car, and these two Austin police officers rushed over there, and luckily they got there quickly, but
Mhm.
they literally, that car was inflamed. He was unconscious in the car, and
Mhm.
luckily they were able to force their way into the vehicle while it was on fire and drag him to safety. But
Mhm.
again, imagine if you're in there and you're hurt from the accident, you can't get out. Do you really want a 14, 15-minute response time for emergency services? I mean,
Nope.
we're literally talking a matter of life and death now,
And the only people who would be able to afford personal protection would be the very wealthy.
right?
It'll
Yeah.
be the rest of us will be pretty much on our own. I think they really need to change course. I think there's still time. I think that this year, I think this has to be 20 and 21 have to be the
Mm.
crappiest 2 years of our lives. Really, we've had just death, doom, and destruction, and the pandemic. They milked that for everything they could
Wow.
get.
Right. Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, some people have told me, some Austinites who used to live in Austin moved away. When they come to visit now, they said they don't recognize the city anymore. I mean, we have over 2 dozen tents set up right now at City Hall, in front of City Hall, and
Is
of
it,
nothing
that's
against.
legal?
Well, it's not. It's absolutely illegal. But City Hall has ordered the police department not to intervene. They've been out there for 2 weeks now, or longer. The whole place is just a trash dump now. They're harassing the city council members as they're trying to walk in and out of City Hall. And they gave a videotaped statement to a news outlet threatening to kill any police officer, and showed off their knives and their bats and their sticks, and
Um,
said they'll kill any police officer who tries to attempt to move them away from the City Hall property.
mm.
And they're
Well,
just stay there.
we've got to do something. I mean, we can't just go home and twiddle our thumbs. We've got to do
I
something. I
agree.
think you're doing something by showing up especially at the border. What's going on there? It seems to be it's not let up.
No, it's gotten worse. We're seeing stories now every single day from ranchers that are down on the border, where their ranches are literally being overrun by groups of 20, 30, 40 illegals at a time,
Oh.
who steal their vehicles, breaking into their barns, tearing down their fences. Um, and so far, there's been zero movement from the governor as far as providing any kind of relief to these ranchers. The sheriffs down on the border have become very outspoken. They're giving news conferences detailing the nightly chases that they're getting into with the illegals. It's just non-stop, and but yet there's no stomach to do anything in the legislature. I was just at the Capitol Friday,
Hmm.
and I asked Senator Bob Hall on video. I asked him, why is Abbott, so far he only sent less than 500 National Guard to the border. We have 18,000 National Guard troops in Texas, actually a little bit more, but just right around 18,000. And Senator Hall's response was, because it would be illegal. So,
I find that odd because how could that be illegal?
well, they're talking about the Posse Comitatus Act that says that the military cannot be used to enforce any kind of law enforcement function, or um, enforce any kind of internal U.S. policy, right? Domestic U.S. policy. Now,
Oh.
there is something to that, right? The act does exist, right? But there's also ways around that, okay? And we
Mm-hmm.
know this to be true because during the riots, you will see the National Guard being deployed, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They've been deployed to Ferguson, they were deployed to Minnesota, they were deployed to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are they doing there? That's absolutely a law enforcement function that they're
Yes.
doing, right? So this is a convenient cop out that the Texas legislatures are hiding behind to justify not doing anything. And I don't know what the end game is. I don't know if it's because the governor is running for reelection next year. Abbott's running for reelection. I don't know if he's worried about the Hispanic vote, if he cracks down too much on illegal immigration. But obviously, there has to be something. There has to be
There has to be
something that,
something going on that we don't
right,
know, because
right,
really he does give lip service, and I like
right,
Abbott, but he does give lip service, and he says, I'm sending in some troops, to help at the border. And that was
yeah,
on the 5th of May. And
right,
and I was doing a little research. I'm thinking, okay, where are they? And
yeah.
that's what I was going to ask you. I go, have you seen all of these people that he said he was going to send? Or
Well, we know that there was a news story out where it was a lot of people were upset because one unit that got sent down there, they literally had them picking up trash, like literally picking up trash, right?
wow.
Uh, the other people that are down there, they're literally just performing administrative functions. They're working in offices, they're working in tactical operations centers. They're really in a complete support role. There's not a single National Guard soldier actually patrolling the
Mm,
border, right? And that's what we need.
that's what
Uh,
we need.
we need them patrolling the border, and they
Mhm.
are on Texas property. They have every right to do so. It's ridiculous for them to say it's illegal. It's not illegal. Okay.
Mhm.
I, as a citizen, if an illegal comes on my ranch, now they don't want to tell people that,
Mhm.
but if an illegal comes on my ranch down in South Texas,
Mhm.
okay, and crosses my property line, I have every right, under Texas law, to ask that person to leave. Okay. If they refuse to leave, I have the right under Texas penal codes to use force to
Mhm.
force them to leave. And obviously, I have the right to call Border Patrol and make sure that Border Patrol comes and picks them up, or the sheriff department comes and picks them up. Right.
Mhm.
So if citizens can do that, you're telling me the National Guard can't do that? I mean,
Mm.
let's be realistic about this. They can. They just, and again, we've used them in cities, we use them for riots.
Mm.
So if we can do that, but it would take the governor, it would require him to declare a state of emergency, and right now he doesn't want to do that for whatever reason.
Oh, I don't know if it's going to behoove him to neglect it, because I think every Spanish speaking person I know wants the border patrol down there, and they don't want illegals here either. They don't want people that we don't know who they are. I mean, these are not just from Central America anymore. It's like
No,
people from Africa and Ukraine and all sorts of countries
it
are coming in. We don't know what their motives are to get into this country
all
illegally.
over, yeah, from all over the world now. There was just a news story out the other day about, how many people now that we're seeing from overseas, not from Central America, but from Eastern Europe, India, like you said, Congo, in
Hmm.
Africa. And that's, the word is out. The word is out that our border is wide open, and that people should just can just come over and cross, and they are. And again, it's non-sustainable. It's just absolutely non-sustainable. So I don't know. I don't know what the end game is. I was really disappointed. I was hoping for a better answer from Senator Hall.
Yes.
But the fact that they're saying, "Oh no, it's illegal. We just can't do anything," I
Yeah.
feel the best.
There's something that they could do, and they know that there's something that they could
Well,
do. And
and afraid of it. They're obviously. I got the sense that they're afraid. He's like, well, the feds have to, that they have to do this. This is the feds' responsibility. My thing is, listen, this is a fight Abbott should absolutely want with the federal government,
yes,
right?
yes.
Declare a state of emergency, send a National Guard down there, and then make Biden come out publicly and say, hey, we're going to stop you from sending the National Guard down there. We're going to sue the state of Texas if you don't take the national. That's a fight that Abbott should want all day long.
Yes,
You
all
know,
day long he should want that. That
because how that's going to play public opinion wise for most of the citizens of the United States, that the federal government is interfering with Texas protecting its own border, right?
yes.
And literally helping these folks, from all these other countries illegally enter. I think that's a fight Abbott should want, but
I think so too.
yeah, they don't seem to
Maybe
have
he's
the
listening.
support.
I mean, I hope he listens, because that is something his job is to take care of Texas, and you can't take care of Texas if you don't take care of our borders.
I
Uh,
agree.
that is fundamental. I mean,
Right.
it's not. I wonder, the Democrats, they're not united anymore, except for when it was against Trump. They were united in their hatred towards our former president. They were united in that, but now I'm not thinking they're united in like the gas prices. I don't think they're united in that. I don't
Right.
think I don't think there's unity. As long as they were unified in hate, they were okay. But now
Yeah.
things are kind of going crazy, and I think they're gonna feel the sting of their decisions, and I
I
think
agree.
that's when we'll see the change, unfortunately. And there
Right.
will be people will pay a hefty price for the lessons that we are learning, and that's
And,
what's unfortunate.
right. Whether we're talking, the financial and economic impact of millions of illegals coming into this country, or whether we're talking about victims of violent crimes, how many people are going to have to die before we realize that defunding the police is a terrible idea, right? And
Right.
so yeah, you're right. The price is going to have to be paid. I just hope that, in the upcoming midterms next year,
Mhm.
that, we start turning things around in the House and in the Senate, so that we can stop some of this nonsense that's currently going on.
In San Antonio, I saw a photo of police officers all in uniform, and the leader was pleading with the city not to defund the police because there was a movement, in San Antonio, and they were all very handsome in their uniforms. And I'm looking at them, and I'm looking closer at the picture, and I'm zooming in. I'm like, they're all darker than me, and I'm black. I'm like,
Yeah.
how are they are they being penalized because of racism in Minneapolis?
Right.
And they're all darker than me. What the heck? It
Yeah.
makes no sense. According to their identity politics.
Right.
So they ended up actually increasing their budget
Right. Well,
for the
that's a good.
police department.
I saw that, and I was really proud of the city down there that they did the right thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge. That was a huge victory for them. But that's always. It's always kind of been that way, right? Like, that's the one thing when people talk about the police being oppressive and things like that. I got to tell you, during my time on the streets here in Austin and stuff like that, some of the worst hate that I saw being directed at police officers was being directed at the minority police officers
Mm-hmm.
by minority citizens, right? And there's many times, one of my best friends and partners at the time was a black officer, and man, on a nightly basis, he had to hear that he was an Uncle Tom, that he was a sellout, that he constantly had to hear that from the criminal element over there, right?
Right.
And again, that's something you never hear liberals talk about.
No, you don't.
Talk about the abuse that the minority police officers get from the people in the minority community.
In fact, the way that they frame it on the news, and when they're talking about their pundits, and they frame it as though all police officers are white.
Right. Yeah.
and I'm thinking 9 times out of 10 that's not true. And and for instance, they were retired now, but I have 2 cousins who were on a SWAT team in LA, and they're black, and it's their job literally to shoot people. So I'm thinking, if they did shoot somebody, and I don't know that they did, but I'm thinking that would never make the news.
No, yeah, that's very true. And that's been the case again for a very long time. That And really it's a microcosm of society as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black on black crime in Chicago doesn't make the news,
No.
and contrarily, a black officer getting involved in a shootout with a black criminal, that rarely makes the news, right?
Oh no. According to the news people, black police officers never use their weapon. Only
Yeah,
the white police officers do.
yeah.
And
Well,
that's only if the person's black.
yeah, I can tell you from experience that's absolutely not true. But yeah, you're right, that is the perception, and that's the way the media likes to frame it, but at the end of the day, police officers, the majority of police officers I worked with over the years, they all shared very common characteristics as far as their personalities and stuff. And if you ask almost any of them, why did you get into this? The answer was always usually, I want to help people. I want to help people. And it's one of the reasons I became a police officer. I rode out with APD when I was a junior at
Mm-hmm.
Lanier High School here in Austin. We had a criminal justice program, and I rode out one night on East 11th, East 12th Street back in like 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind was just like, poof, it was just blown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd never seen anything like I did on that ride along. And then I was like, it was like a calling. I was like, I know what I want to do without a doubt. I want to come back. And I didn't just want to be a police officer. I want to be a police officer on East 11th, East 12th Street. And then about
11th Street was dangerous back then.
it was very dangerous, and but it was also different. It was a different kind of you could drive up 11th Street, and back then they had a lot of working girls that would walk up and down the street.
I remember.
You had the pimps that had the big Cadillacs that would park on the side. They'd be shooting dice or playing cards or things like that, and it was dangerous, but in a different way, because this was pre-crack, and
Right.
so didn't quite have the gangs like you did later on once crack came along. That really, and there was businesses over there. There was black owned businesses over there that were open,
Mm-hmm.
and then crack came along, and it just wiped, for a few years it wiped the east side out. I mean, there was hardly a single open business over there, maybe two or three on East 11th Street from the interstate up to about Chicon.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it was terrible. Most of the houses were boarded up, because of drug issues and raids and things like that. And it took about 5-6 years to get that under control during the mid to late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the police department went in and cleaned it up, that's how reinvestment started happening over there. And then now it's you go over there, you don't even recognize it anymore. Multi-million-dollar properties, and it's been a big change.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, when I was in college, I went there a few times I went to this club there. I was scared, really, when I drove into that neighborhood. I was scared, but a friend of mine invited me, and so we went in a small little club, and Stevie Ray Vaughan came in and played.
Wow.
It was so cool. I mean, it was like the size of your living room. It was like a totally small little club.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't know, but she knew
Yeah.
that was going to happen. So, but I thought that was
Yeah.
so cool back in the day in Austin.
Yeah. It was a unique time in Austin. And, in some ways it was almost a better time,
Yeah.
than what we're seeing now. It almost breaks my heart a little bit when I drive over there now, because everything is so commercialized, and so it lost its character.
Yes. That's exactly how I see it, because I had such good memories of Austin back then.
Kind of sad, and I think, again, I think that the city sold a bill of goods there, because I think a lot of activists at the time on the east side who were fighting
Mm-hmm.
to want reinvestment and all that, I don't think they ever imagined that when that day finally came, that they would be pushed out. And that's what, like it's completely gentrified, and it's most of the people have been pushed out of there now because the property taxes and everything are so high that, like I said, a property that, that literally had a boarded house up on it that you couldn't give away in
Mm-hmm.
1995, literally could not get somebody to move there.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's for $1.5 million.
Oh yeah, I remember it being very dangerous. I thought I
Yeah,
was being very risque going there. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
badass. Going to South, going 11th Street.
yeah. That
Oh,
was my district actually. So yeah, it's like I said, I did wind up working there, and I loved it. I mean, if you're going to be a police officer, that's where the work was in the '90s. That's where a lot of the work was.
I'll
So
bet.
yeah.
Wow, gosh. You know what? I was wondering about back to the border.
Mhm.
When you see the people coming, and I see so many of the women uh, are overweight, and that tells me maybe they didn't walk all the way. Is that absurd? I mean, is that just like
No,
a
no, no. They are definitely. That's a complete misconception that these folks are walking like from Honduras to Mexico. That's a complete. There's an entire pipeline set up with way stations along the way. Um, I like to in some ways compare it to the Ho Chi Minh Trail during the
Mm,
Vietnam War, right? When the
mhm,
when the North Vietnamese would move men, materials, supplies from North Vietnam down to South Vietnam to fight the Americans, right? Um, they had way stations set up where they would go, they would travel for maybe a day, maybe 2 days, and then
mhm.
they had a place for them set up where they could cook and they could sleep and they could rest and they could you know and it's the exact same thing from Central America coming to North America now is they have buses, these bus routes set up, trains, and these folks are trained on they're like, okay, look, you can either take the train and hop on there, or you can take this bus, and it'll cost you this much if you take the bus. But very few of them walk the entire way. Yeah, in
That
fact,
is
many of them do.
good. I mean, well, I was just wondering about that. I thought, if I walked
Yeah,
that far, I'd be,
right.
fit for one thing. And then you wonder, what are they eating along the way? Where are they staying? Who's helping this whole thing along? Why are we not investigating the whole thing, the whole caravan issue?
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, again, there's a combination of things. In some of the countries, the governments are supplying water, basic materials. In some places, the Red Cross is helping out. Faith-based charities are helping out. So there's a lot of money actually being sent there to kind of organize these camps
Mhm.
where they rest along the way. They have clothes there for them. They have food there for them. I mean, if you look at a lot of the pictures now when they're turning themselves into Border Patrol, they
Mhm.
all have decent clothes on. Some of them have brand new clothes on, brand new footwear. Almost every single one of them has cell phone. So yeah,
Mm.
there's yeah,
Well, shame on Biden. Shame on him and Kamala. I mean, I don't think they're going to go to the border to visit. I don't think they want that photo op. I don't think
no.
they want to be seen near all these illegal immigrants.
Well,
And,
I think yeah, I think if you listen to what they're saying right now, they're literally lying. I mean, not even pretending. They're just saying there is no issue at the border. The
mm,
border is closed. We are enforcing all immigration laws, and anybody who tells you otherwise is lying. That's their position. And
yeah.
by not going to the border, that helps them continue that narrative, right? If
Mhm.
they go down there, they feel like they're going to give credence to what the people actually know is taking place, which is that we're having a virtual invasion. And like you said, they don't want that photo off. They don't want to be anywhere close to that.
And then also the media. I'm concerned, not concerned, but I'm thinking the media. What happened to the kids in cages thing? I
Right.
thought they were all about the kids in cages. What about those kids in cages? I remember watching The View and Joy Behar. Those kids in cages,
Right.
and that's all Trump's fault. And now, not a peep. What about the kids in those tents? What about
Yeah.
they're not even concerned now. There's more of them coming, but there's not even a dialogue about it anymore.
Oh, I think right now we're up to probably 6 to 7 times as many kids currently under federal detention than what we had under Trump. Under
Mhm.
Trump, we barely had around 10,000. And now in El Paso alone, they just opened up a center that's going to hold 10,000 kids. That's just in El Paso alone, right? We're probably realistically looking at right now somewhere around 55 to 65,000 that are probably right now in detention centers around the U.S. spread out of kids, minors that are being held. That's not to say anything about the adults, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
I read an article, and I'm not sure if the numbers are correct, but they said that 1/3 of the children that are 6 and under show signs of having been sexually abused.
yeah.
1/3.
Yeah, and again, that's something that the government does not want to talk about at all. But you know, we have spoken to guards, for example, at the Donna detention facility down in Donna, Texas,
Mhm.
and who actually work inside the facility, and they have all of them are seeing signs of sexual abuse in these kids, right? And these kids are acting out sexually in those detention centers because they've been abused. And
Exactly.
and we're hearing that from guards up in Dallas, the detention center up in Dallas. We heard it from guards in Donna.
Mhm.
So this is yes, I would say those numbers are probably fairly accurate. Yeah,
And nobody wants to help them. I mean, the thing is, the people who think they're helping them aren't helping them.
right, right. No, and that's the shame of it, right? They cloak this as a humanitarian issue, and oh look, we have a humanitarian duty to help these folks, but you're not helping, right?
No.
And when your policy is set up in a way to where it encourages people to ship kids by themselves, in some of these kids are completely unaccompanied. They're unaccompanied minors. They do not have any family with them. And we're not talking about a few, we're talking about thousands,
Mhm.
right, that are unaccompanied minors. So when your policy is set up in a way to where parents feel like, hey, yeah, let's ship our kid up there, right? It's worth it. And not have any kind of thought on what the consequences could possibly be,
Mhm.
right? And the fact that the US government, they know this. Like Biden knows without it, his intel, I mean, we have the best intelligence services in the world, right? Some of the best. And so they know exactly what's happening. They're telling Biden exactly what's happening in the centers, what's happening to the migrants along the route from Central America here. They
Mhm.
know the women are being raped. They know the kids are being sexually abused. And when his position is still, oh, there's not a problem. I
That's
mean,
beyond.
that in my view, that
Nobody's
makes
that naive.
right. No, and like I said, it's not naivete because his intelligence services are telling him what's going on. They're
So
briefing.
basically, well, I don't
Right.
I don't know that he would care because I mean I always see him sniffing little kids anyway.
Yeah.
He's a little
Oh
bit
no.
of a perv himself.
Well, and I think I think I don't know, his personal preferences when it comes to that, but I do think that there's a large group of people out there who justify this by saying, well, they're still better off here than they are back where they came from, and I 100% disagree with that.
Yeah,
Does it matter whether you're being raped geographically in Honduras or
right.
whether you're being raped geographically in St. Louis? Or does it really matter? It doesn't,
It's
right?
still horrible. It's still
It's exactly
evil.
right. That's exactly what it is. So I believe that the humanitarian thing is to make sure that we don't encourage this so that it continues to happen. That would be the ethically and morally right thing to do.
Yes.
But we're not, because the truth is, and I think you know this, Kathy, the truth is these migrants are being used as pawns. They're political pawns,
Hmm.
right? And that's and so I think they look at it like, yeah, doesn't matter. We're going to get what we want out of them. what happens to them, that's their problem. And I
And
think that is the sickest thing in this whole travesty.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Well, thank you so much for being on kathysright.com.
Absolutely.
I love hearing. I have a lot more questions, but we could be here like another 3 hours. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't, what do you call it? I didn't want to overdo it, because if I do too harsh on you, then you may never come back, and I want you to come back.
I'm always happy to speak with you. We always have some great conversations, and I do it. And I want to wish everybody a good Memorial Day, a blessed Memorial Day. And if your viewers have a moment, please remember the folks who gave their lives for our country today.
Amen. And lots of them did, and they did it for our freedom, not so we can just hand it over to Marxists.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay, God bless you. kathysright.com would like to thank Tim Enlow for being our guest. I hope he'll come back soon. He is today's example of an American hero. He goes to the border. He goes to the Capitol. He talks to people. He is trying to get the word out as to what is going on in the state of Texas and indeed America. This Memorial Day, we want to remember all those who've paid the full measure with their lives for this country, for the American people, so that we could live freely in a free country. Freedom is what it was all about. Freedom is all we've ever fought for. From the days of the Pilgrims and everything, we've always fought for freedom. That's what this country's about. But for some reason, the Democrats want to wrap it up in a present and put a bow on it and just hand it over to communists and Marxists within our own borders. That's disgusting. It's time we do something, America, each and every one of us. It is our responsibility. Because of those who died for our freedom, we should show a little appreciation and try to keep it. Do what you must. Do what you ought. This is Kathy of kathysright.com. God bless America. Bye.